Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Chase, and today I will be telling you guys a few things you should know before you take boot camp. And this isn't just going to be coding languages, coding skills to know. It's going to be lifestyle skills as well, and just some general advice that I would give to someone that's thinking about doing a boot camp or maybe about to start a boot camp. So with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I would recommend anyone to do before starting a boot camp or even setting foot in the building that the boot camp is taking place in would be to learn as much as you can beforehand. There's a lot of people out there online that I see considering boot camps, and the issue that I see with a lot of them is none of them have even written one line of code. And there can be a lot of topics that spring off of that, but basically you are going to want to have a lot of time with code before taking the boot camp. A lot of these boot camps really flex and say, we can teach you everything there is to know for code, and we could take you from no code experience to being a coding master. And while maybe part of that is true, keep in mind most of these boot camps are only 3 months. Some are a little longer depending on if you're full-time or part-time. Of course, location, it all varies. But I will say, when I was in boot camp, the ones that did prepare ahead of time, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but the ones that were familiar with some of the code really shined during boot camp, and it made it easier for them when the boot camp ended to really flex their skills for employers and whatnot. So what does this look like? What does it mean to learn beforehand? Well, what I would do is look at whatever boot camp you're interested in your area, whether it's online, it doesn't matter, but look at what skills they are teaching you. And don't necessarily jump for that JavaScript library or whatever. If you haven't touched code at all, just start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That alone is enough to really jumpstart you into a boot camp. But I would look at the skills that they're going to teach you, and then from there go online and figure out a path that is going to allow you to learn those skills. Now, if you're in the web development world, this is a pretty easy answer because probably 99% of the boot camps out there are teaching JavaScript. Some may sprinkle in Python, and that's kind of what my boot camp did, but they didn't really emphasize it. That was just one project. So I'd really say focus on JavaScript, and like I said before, hit HTML and CSS before that if you have no experience. Alright, so the next tip I have for you guys is kind of a lifestyle tip, but it's getting into a routine before boot camp. Once boot camp starts, you're going to be on a crazy schedule, so I really highly recommend getting into some sort of routine before that. Now, it may be hard for people that are coming off of full-time jobs and are starting their boot camp immediately, but what I would do is take a look at your boot camp's template schedule. Most of the time they will be able to give you kind of what a day looks like, and then 1 to 2 weeks beforehand, preferably 2 weeks, because you want to be already in that mindset before starting. Look at when it starts, when it ends typically, and then start waking up and going to bed around those times. So to me, this means a solid wake up time, a solid bedtime, solid meal times, and then from there it's really up to you to juggle your time. But once you're in that routine, it's going to be so much easier, because if you don't do this, you're going to be really struggling with the whole boot camp routine, because it is pretty intense on work, and if you're not used to doing that, then you might be in some trouble the first week or two. Alright, so the next tip kind of falls in line with the last one, but basically prioritize sleep. A lot of people are going to want to go as hard as they can, grind as hard as possible, because they've heard stories of people getting jobs in 3 months after boot camps, and in every second not coding is a waste. But that is not a good mindset to be in, especially when you're doing a coding boot camp, because honestly, right from the moment you step in or the moment you hop onto Zoom, you are going to be in a coding mindset, and you need as much of that brain power as you can to fully comprehend it. I had some days where I didn't quite get enough sleep because I was up a little later coding, and I really paid the price the next day in boot camp. It's really hard to focus on those morning sessions if you are lacking on sleep, and I promise you, while it does seem like your project may not be as good or this one skill is going to be sacrificing, you have to keep in mind that boot camps are already at this insanely fast pace, and just because you're going to finish the boot camp doesn't mean you're going to be done learning every single skill in there. So it's really important to prioritize the sleep and really just utilize what kind of time you have to be in the right mindset. So to me, that means at least 8 hours of sleep, preferably 7 to 8 realistically. But seriously, get that sleep because you will definitely need it in a boot camp. All right, so I kind of left the biggest tip for last, and this one does sort of tie into the first point, but it's to not rush into a boot camp. And what I mean by that is really take the time to think about if boot camp is for you, but also deciding which boot camp is for you. There are so many boot camps out there: General Assembly, Hack Reactor, App Academy, Flatiron, Lambda, Coding Dojo. There's so many out there that alone is a big decision to really weigh the pros and cons of each one. Some will teach you 3 different stacks, which I don't recommend. Some will teach you a little bit of mobile. Some will teach you Python, JavaScript, like I was saying before. So that alone is a big decision to weigh. And then as well as that, you have to look at the prices of each bootcamp. Bootcamp is very expensive. Now, it's not as expensive as, going to a 4-year degree path at a university for computer science, but it's enough for probably 99% of the people to really have to sit down and weigh out the pros and cons. Will I be able to pay this off? Is it worth it for me to quit my job full time and do this thing? Because the bootcamp route, while they really like to sell it as you will get a job, 90% of graduates get a job, blah, 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 oftentimes that's not even quite the case. It's really tough to get a job after bootcamp. I'm still in the job search process. So you kind of want to take those flashy numbers they like to throw at you, statistics, and just push them aside, because it really kind of depends on what you are willing to sacrifice. And this comes back again to the first point of learn as much as you can beforehand, because you don't want to be monetarily in debt to somebody or have already paid off the bootcamp, and then halfway through you're like, this might not be for me, I don't know. But honestly, if you do commit to it, I do recommend sticking with it, because it's coding, it's hard, and those thoughts will creep into your head, especially during bootcamp. And that kind of brings me to like a bonus point actually. It's really important to realize mentally going into this that it is going to be really, really hard. They're going to be cramming in a ton of information that normally you could really take your time on if you weren't in a boot camp, and it's going to be very, very fast. So oftentimes you're going to think to yourself, this is hard, did I make the right decision? Am I supposed to be an engineer? Was this worth it? I don't think I'm cut out for this. But in fact, that's not really the case. That's just part of the process. And really there's a point in boot camp where the first maybe month out of a 3-month boot camp, it just seems so hard. And then, at least for me, what happens was you get into a groove and things click in, and then you're just following a routine, and it just feels like school again. I mean, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and once the day is over, your day is not really over. You're going to be coding well into the night. But it's important to realize that those thoughts you have, you just need to do your best to ignore them, push them aside. You can acknowledge that they're there, and the best part about bootcamp, in my opinion, is you have all of your cohort friends to really relate to things with, and that I find is where a lot of the learning does happen. They'll teach you stuff, you'll go to bootcamp, you'll go to the classes, you'll go to the lectures and all that stuff, but really the learning happens when you're working with your friends and talking about problems that you're having with code and outside of code. So that's gonna do it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope some of these tips helped you, and let me know down in the comments below, are you gonna go to a boot camp? Are you thinking about going to a boot camp? I went to General Assembly in Los Angeles, so I do have experience with the full-time immersive that they offered. So if that one in particular is something you're curious about, I can offer way more questions. So just comment down below or hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, and I will definitely be happy to answer any and all questions. That's gonna do it, guys. Thanks so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.